Welcome, listener. This is Sebastian Nothwell, here today with Tess Carletta to discuss her forthcoming queer romantasy novel, Goldheart. Hello, Tess.
Hiya.
So congrats on fully funding your Kickstarter in 2 days.
Oh my goodness. So, just to start us out with a little fun anecdote, my mother, I was in a bookstore and I get a call from my mom. She's like, guess what I got to do for your Kickstarter? And I'm like, what? And I open it up and it's fully funded because she like sprinkled the pennies it needed in order to be pushed over the edge. But yeah, I couldn't believe it.
That's so sweet.
It was really cute.
So Tess, what is Goldheart?
What isn't Goldheart? No, I'm just kidding. Goldheart is a romantic fantasy that takes place in a world where the sun causes you to grow plants out of your skin. So we meet the main character, Senna, who is kind of taken out of his orphanage at a young age and trained up to be like the highest ranking knight in his land. And he and the prince that he guards embark on this quest to figure out a cure for the sun sickness and find a way to reunite with their rival kingdom, which happens to have all of their friends and their love interests as well.
So what inspired you to write this book?
Kind of like the dust had settled from my first book, Kit and Basie, and I was like, what do I want to work on next? I don't want to work on something for Tales from Long Lily because that's all in Pennsylvania, and I think I'm ready to explore somewhere and just take a little trip outside of this nice hometown that I have created. And I was like, what do I want to write the most about in this present moment? And I had just finished beta reading a book about a guard falling in love with the person that he guarded, and I was like, yes, but also how do we have fun with that? And I was like, what else do I enjoy? Plants, fantasy, forbidden love, and found family. And then I gave my roommates like the pitch of the book, and my roommate was like, well, if they grow plants out of their skin, then there has to be sex pollen, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I guess there has to be sex pollen.
Of course.
And I guess, like, if you're not familiar with that term, it is a term that I believe originated in fanfiction.
Oh, for sure, yes.
And is essentially when 2 characters, or 3 characters, or more characters encounter a magical plant that has magical pollen. And when they encounter it, they start going at it like rabbits. But in Goldheart, it's consensual, and it's not quite polleny. It's more fruity, but...
So what were you most excited to write about in this story?
Aside from figuring out how I was going to make sex pollen consensual, I think there's been a few things that I've been really excited to write about, mostly the world of like trying to figure out like how this magic system works, where people grow plants out of their skin, and in one kingdom it's really detrimental to their health, and then in the other kingdom they've made it the sole focus of their whole society. So it's what they decorate with, it's what they use for medicine, it's what they, I mean, oh my god, the possibilities are endless. There's a scene I was just editing today where the main character goes to this kingdom, Redwind, for the first time, and he's looking around and people are eating with it, people are playing games with it, people are making art with it, people are decorating their homes with it, and he's like, this is a lot. And it is a lot, and it's fun to play with. And then I also think that, so the main character, Senna, has a difficult time speaking, and this is like because of traumatic events that he's been through. So I've been doing a lot of research into like selective mutism and what that looks like, and just being able to write him healing from his anxiety and coming out of his shell more and more and speaking a little bit more and more with people that he's comfortable with has been a lot of fun.
What surprised you about the writing process for this book?
I think the most surprising thing is that I got it done in the first place.
Isn't it always?
Oh my god. I have been trying to write this other fantasy book since 2017, and the world building and the magic system and all the characters and all the stuff going on was really, really hard for me to balance. And when I took this on, somehow it was even more world building and more magic system and more characters and stuff, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? But I think what surprised me most, and what surprises me most still right now, was that like I'm in the revision part of the process. Like, it's done. Like, technically, if I didn't want to revise it anymore, like I could just shove it out into the world and it would be a completed project. And I think that's just kind of goes to prove that you can get better at things and you can learn how to do things, and even if they seem daunting, you can still tackle them. Because there were so many points in the process where I would be halfway through, or I would think I was halfway through, because the book ended up being 173,000 words, and it was supposed to be like 140,000 max. So every time I thought I was halfway through...
Been there!
It's just, I would like think I was halfway through, and then I would not even be close to halfway through it. So like for at least 6 or 7 months, people would be like, how's your book going? And I'm like, oh, I'm halfway through. And they're like, weren't you halfway through 3 months ago? Yeah, and? So like just getting able to overcome that, like the parts where I was like really struggling and like not inspired.
So your Kickstarter is fully funded, but it will remain open to new backers until April 3rd. So what can backers expect from this Kickstarter campaign, and how does it differ from your previous Kickstarter for your first novel, Kitten Basie?
It differs in that I'm not, how do I want to put this nicely? I'm not overwhelming myself to the point where I feel like I'm gonna die. Because I overachieved so hard in the Kitten Basie Kickstarter. So, what backers can expect today, I just announced the stretch goals. So there are 4. The first 2 are already met. The first is that there's going to be a short story that goes to all of the backers, because I wanted to make sure that the digital backers, especially our friends in Europe and all the other places that it's hard to ship to, would get to have something of the stretch goals. And it won't be like Patchwork, which I included in the Kitten Basie Kickstarter, because Patchwork was supposed to be a short story and it ended up being a 40,000 word novella. We're not doing that this time. This will just be an actual short story. The second stretch goal is a enamel pin that I'm working with a really wonderful, talented tattoo artist to come up with a design for, and that'll go to all of the physical backers. And then the third one is going to be a vellum overlay, and the last one, which there's a big gap between the third one and the fourth one, but it'll be, if we raise enough money, it'll be the audiobook.
Hell yeah!
Yeah! So I think this Kickstarter, compared to the other one, they don't seem entirely different, I think, from the backer standpoint, because I used the first Kickstarter as kind of a template for the second one. So like the way that I laid out the little story and the way that I organized the rewards and everything is all the same if you're looking at it from the outside, but a lot of the math is more solid. I didn't do my math right the first time, and that really could have screwed me over, but thankfully it didn't. And then this time also it's different because it's mostly backed by people who are my readers. So people who have read Kitten Basie or Patchwork or something and really enjoyed it, or people who have heard that my books are okay and they want to try to support me and see what the fuss is all about. My first Kickstarter was mostly my family and friends. It was like getting it to the point of being funded was a lot of people that I knew personally in my real world life, and then once it was funded, then people outside of that like tiny little Pennsylvania circle began to support it as well. But this time, I can probably count on one hand the amount of people that I know in real life who are supporting it, which is kind of fun. Overall, I think that the biggest difference between this Kickstarter and my first one is just that I made the conscious choice to not drive myself into a wall.
Good call.
Yeah, really. I was like, I could crochet something for the backers, and I'm like, no. You crocheted so many tiny little sunflowers that your hands started to hurt. Like, we don't need to be doing that.
No.
So this time I tried to pick rewards that were really easy for me to just produce and get shipped without me kind of going crazy. And did I overachieve a little bit by collaborating with a tea company and a candle company and other artists? Maybe so. But that's still gonna be significantly less stress on me.
Yeah, you're not packing and shipping all the tea yourself, and you're not...
I am actually packing all the tea myself.
No, Tess, that's not...
But
Tess!
I don't have to make it myself. So the first time I made tea for Kitten Basie, it was...
God.
The first time I made tea, I was supposed to be making lavender tea because that's what Kit drinks in the book. But I don't really care for the lavender flavor. I just kind of picked it because Google said it was relaxing and a good nighttime tea. So I had to figure out a way to like make the lavender tea, but make it so that it was something that I could drink. So my dad and I got into our kitchen and spent many hours just messing with different ratios of lavender, hibiscus, and lemon verbena. And it would be like we started out with a lot of lavender, and then we would have to like, by the end there were like 2 little tiny sprigs of lavender in the tea because lavender is just a very overpowering flavor. But at any rate, this time I'm leaving the ratios and the knowledge and the mixing to Tea for Tea, which is owned by the just most wonderful woman, Ella. And she's very smart, and the mix looks delicious, and it looks 1,000 times better than what I made for Kit and Basie, but I will be the one putting it in the bags. But I can weigh things and I can put them in bags. I can do that.
You're just no longer hand blending each batch. You've outsourced that at least.
Oh my god, that was so...
Oh god.
Because then there was math involved.
Yeah, dude.
Because I would come up with a perfect ratio for like one little cup, and then my dad's like, okay, now let's multiply this and figure out how much of this is per ounce. And I was like, oh god. So Ella from Tea for Tea is the real one for that, for doing it for me this time.
Blessings upon Ella. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
But you're no longer hand mixing all of the tea yourself. You're no longer hand crocheting everything yourself. You're not making all of the candles yourself, right, Tess? You're outsourcing the candle manufacture, right?
I'm outsourcing the candles. It's a local Pennsylvania company. I already have held a sample and been like, smells nice. I think the only thing I have to do with that is make my own little label for the top. I really should have taken a marketing class at some point in my existence, but we're just kind of becoming Canva queens on our own through trial and error.
Hell yeah. In that vein, do you have any advice for authors who would like to publish their works through Kickstarter?
Oh my goodness. So... my advice is to really understand what Kickstarter is, for one, and then to really take your time with the planning. Because once the Kickstarter begins, it's really hard to edit and change things. So you won't be able to change your goal for the amount of money you'll be raising. You won't be able to add items to each tier. You'll have to, if you do want to do that, you have to do it yourself. I've just seen a lot of people use Kickstarter like it's GoFundMe. And what it really is crowdsourcing for a product. So, people aren't donating out of the kindness of their heart just so that you can give them a sweet little thank you gift. And that's kind of the way that it is in my head, because I'm like, oh, I get to make so many little thank you gifts for all my little friends, and that's fun. But at the end of the day, these people are promising to give you money so that you can create a product that they can then have. And making sure that you take your time with the marketing and the way that it looks, and making sure that all your little I's and T's are dotted and crossed or whatever, all of that is solid, so that when people find it, they can see a really professional product. Because ultimately, your Kickstarter reflects the final thing that you're making. So if you're trying to publish your book through Kickstarter, then the Kickstarter should look really neat and clean, because it makes it seem like your book is going to be neat and clean. And your book could be super high quality, but if your Kickstarter is low quality, people are going to not trust that those things are the same. So really thinking thoroughly about what you can handle, but then also what you have the money for. What can you feasibly do yourself? Should I really have made my own tea from scratch and bagged it and made the labeling myself? Maybe not, but I did it out of necessity because I figured it out. But yeah, I don't know. These are the lessons that we learn through trial and error. But the other thing too with Kickstarter is that if it's not going well, if you're not reaching your funding goal, and I know that this is easy for me to say as someone with 2 fully funded Kickstarters, but the worst possible scenario is that it just doesn't get funded and you try again later, either through a different avenue or again on Kickstarter. That's just kind of a lot of people are like, oh god, this will ruin my life if it doesn't fund. And I'm like, my love, you will be okay and we will figure it out. So just know that if you really take your time and think about it and do your utmost to make it a really great campaign, then you will set yourself up for success. But even if it doesn't come through, you will still be okay. End rant.
Hell yeah. So what's the one thing you hope readers take away from Goldheart?
I think what I hope people take away is that no matter what type of adversity you've been through, that you can still come out the other side okay and be loved and find love and give love. Because I think that the characters universally all have stuff that they've gone through. And over the course of the book, some more than others really go through it. But ultimately, it's a romance, so of course they're all going to be okay except for one. But I just hope that people are able to see themselves in the characters and see, shit can get really, really bad, but we are going to make it through because we are strong enough to make it through.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tess, and I look forward to seeing where Goldheart goes from here. Where can people check it out if they want to follow along themselves?
So if you go to my Instagram, which is at tess.carletta, there is the Kickstarter link there, but you can also just go on to Kickstarter and either search Goldheart or Tess Carletta and it'll pop right up for you. So you can see more about the Kickstarter there. But then if you just want to follow along with my silly little journey, you can follow me on Instagram or find me at tesscarletta.com.
Hell yeah.
Woohoo!
And I look forward to having you back for another roundtable soon.